the current crisis at the border. And yes, we use that word because as of today, detentions at the border have reached a 20-year high. And just this week, people have been picked up. Just to clarify, the latest numbers, in April, nearly 179,000 people were encountered, as they say. And if you go down the list of some of who these people are, a wanted homicide suspect was arrested, 2,500 pounds of meth, which is worth $5.5 million, was found in concealed medical shipments. 2 men that were on assault charges and arrested, 2 sex offenders, bunch of gang members. It's not great. And on the heels of that, you have the HUD,
Housing and Urban Development Secretary.
Yeah, Marcia Fudge.
That's right. She was asked by reporters yesterday if they would be prioritizing U.S. citizens over undocumented immigrants in public housing.
Getting people in. And her answer was kind of unequivocally,
she said
no.
The answer is no.
You do want to get as many people probably off the streets as you can. Look, I'm not, again, discounting that fact that you don't want people, if you can help people, I'm okay with helping people. However, when the U.S. citizens are not being prioritized, it's a little odd. It's odd that there was a specific answer. And you know why there's a specific answer? Because in 2019, then HUD Secretary Ben Carson, friend of this show, friend of the family, was working on specifically prioritizing American citizens over those who had immigrated illegally for getting public housing. What really at the heart of this is that it was a Trump administration policy that Ben Carson was working on. And again, when they hear Trump administration, they're going to go 100% the other way. We've seen that again in Israel. We've seen that throughout. We've seen that with COVID relief. We've seen so many issues.
You mentioned the COVID pandemic and what goes along with that. A lot of people have lost their jobs, their livelihood, and their housing. So there's already a housing crisis among segments of this country. And you think about places like California that have had a housing crisis for decades with a homeless population that needs housing. And they are, in many cases, American citizens that need that housing. But now you see the shift in the Biden administration of declaring that a policy that was being worked on by the Trump administration, especially during this time of need, great need, an elevated need in our country, that they're no longer going to prioritize those that are here as American citizens or even documented immigrants here in the United States.
I think the signal that has been sent, and I think it's loud and clear, is that the Biden administration at bottom does not truly care about the American people. They care really about one thing and one thing only, reversing each and every Trump-era policy that was working, whether it was prioritizing Americans for housing, whether it was controlling the border, whether it was building the wall, whether it was defending Israel, whether it was denying Iran additional funds, which they then used to fuel terror in Israel. So if a Trump-era policy was working, it is now clearly and unmistakably a candidate for reversal. They call this deconstruction. That takes us back to the postmodern era of the deconstructionists in France. Those policies were nonsensical. And as Camille Paglia has said, postmodernism and deconstructionism simply represents fossilized policies that do not work and have been rightly rejected by American citizens.
I would say there's some blame for this on both sides of the aisle, but it's very clear right now, Logan, that the crisis on the border is something that they're looking to manufacture for political gain, because if they were trying to reach a solution, there's a pretty clear way to do that. I mean, if you back up just about 6 months, the migrant protection protocols that were in place in the Trump administration, they were working, Logan. I mean, there's no way around that. And I love how you opened the broadcast talking about how some of these migrant programs are very close to the heart of the ACLJ. I think about the the asylum program. Logan, that is one that we have worked with for decades, and that is not traditionally something that Republicans in Washington, D.C. have pushed. That has been something that largely Democrats have supported. But right now, Logan, it is being exploited. You don't see legitimate asylum seekers coming in through the asylum program. You see people abusing it. You see people taking the spot of legitimate asylum seekers. So I would just tell you, there are bipartisan proposals that if both the House and the Senate were willing to put forward, they could pass right now. But at this point, Logan, from where I sit, it doesn't look like they want to solve this problem.